Finishing out our draft coverage over the last week or so with the mailbag, answering your questions here on the call up. I'm Arm Layton. He's Jack McMullen. Of course, we will continue to talk about the draft as players sign. Maybe there's some surprising players who don't sign. The deadline is creeping up in a handful of days. But we wanted to make sure that we got to all of the questions that were asked on X/Twitter and Instagram. If you didn't get that question in, no worries. We'll be doing another mailbag in the future. It may not just be draft themed, but if you have a draft related question, could still get featured in there. Of course, we already did a subscriber mailbag on draft questions as well. That was a lot of fun, but a lot of great questions, Jack. So much to talk about still with the draft. And I thought it was a good timing here where we recapped it with 2 episodes that you could check out on YouTube, or of course the previous 2 episodes we put out, but also we've had a little bit more time for everyone to digest everything, for some things to kind of work themselves out. And now we can answer the questions that the listeners want.
I think the first 2 draft episodes were like immediate leans, right? It was, hey, good draft, bad draft. And it was, like knee jerk, hey, seeing the picks. But so much of the way that teams and fans ingest the draft is, hey, how did they allocate the money? And we've just been beating our listeners over the head with that. It's like money. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Travis Bazzana went under slot. Like we were not expecting that. Burns and Condon got a higher bonus than Bazzana got, which is crazy. And I would have never expected that when we did our immediate leans on good draft, bad draft. We were like, oh, best player available, he'll break the record. No, Burns broke the record and Condon broke the record. Bazzana didn't. That was crazy, and there are just added wrinkles to all this that I find fascinating.
Yeah, and you figured they'd save some money. You didn't think that they'd save so much money that it would be cheaper to draft Travis Bazzana than Charlie Condon or Chase Burns or Hagen Smith.
Yeah.
Hagen Smith got more. I think Hagen Smith was over slot, which was also really interesting. I think it also shows you that I think a lot of teams maybe saw Burns and Smith as very, very close as well for the White Sox to have to go slightly over slot there to get them. So a lot of fun wrinkles in there, but we have a ton of questions to get to. I don't know if I'm going to get to this in any of the answers to the questions, but just a couple funny things. I don't want to just make it like LOL Angels because a lot of different teams do this in terms of signing that grad student that you give $2,500 to.
Yeah.
Usually I never see the Braves go less than 2,500. The Angels, and I can't remember the last time I've seen this. The Angels signed 3 players to a $1,000 bonus.
I
see 2 to 8 to 5 to 4, whatever. There's something about 1,000 that's just like insulting. I feel like at that point.
Hey, you get the PS5 and the new college football game. Congratulations.
After taxes and agent fees, what do you think? You still got the PS5 and the new college football game?
Probably.
It's close.
And then you probably have enough money for a Chipotle bowl with guac.
Like, I get it. I understand how it works. And these are grad students and whatever. If your name is called in the MLB draft,
you should get $2,500 at least.
I think you should get at least 10. How much of a difference is that making for the bonus pool allocation? Oh, another 10,000 for Caleb Bonham or whatever, or another 10,000 for Carter Johnson. If that's really what's make or breaking over slot deals in other spots, whatever. I think it's ridiculous that players can get $1,000 to be drafted to play professional baseball by the Major League Baseball itself. So that's a whole nother conversation, but it just was funny to me to see 3 $1,000 bonuses.
I will say I played with a buddy in high school who literally said, I will sign for a fillet of fish.
Yes.
So fair. Okay. But I would hold the organizations to a higher standard to the point where they wouldn't exploit that and actually sign them for a fillet of fish.
Yes. And again, it's not just the Angels, but they were the funniest because I saw 3 1,000s where sometimes you get a 2.5, 3 or 4, 3 1s.
And they haven't done themselves any favors over the last 3-4 years.
Especially financially with the waivers thing they did last year. So
correct.
That's in it itself. But all right, let's jump into these questions. We got 10 of them. Some are quick, some are a little bit longer, and they're all great.
Yeah. So question 1 comes from @GDKeenan20 on X. And the question is, how do you think Braden Montgomery will do after his ankle injury in the Super Regionals, and where will he start in the minor leagues? It's a good question. How will he do after the ankle injury is a layered answer, I think, but where will he start? I'll offer my take and tell me where you think I may be wrong. he's done for the year. I don't. He's not playing affiliated baseball in 2023 because of the ankle injury. I think he comes, or in 2024. I think he starts, like, his first time in a Red Sox uniform or an affiliate uniform is in spring training.
Yes.
I think spring training is going to decide that entirely. If he balls out AA, welcome to Portland, man. If he doesn't, hey, maybe a couple games in Salem and a couple games in Greenville before you get to Portland. But I think the first time he stays somewhere for more than a month is going to be in AA.
It's an interesting one because I'm thinking about what they did with Kyle Teal. And with Kyle Teal, it was about like 10 games or so in high A. And then he quickly gets bumped up to double. That was after like 3 games at the complex too, but they almost always just do that anyways.
Yeah.
I think you bring up a great point with the fact that he's not going to play this year. So he's going to end up really having his first experience, and the team's going to see him for a more extended time before making his pro debut through spring training. And sometimes when things go that way, you can really impress and earn yourself a more aggressive assignment. I still think for a guy like him, Kyle Teal's a little bit more hitterish, and I think was more catered to being able to handle a more aggressive push. I think with some of the swing and miss that may cloud Montgomery's profile a bit, I think it makes sense to start him in high A. And I think that's where we'll probably see him start. And it might be a little bit still longer of a high A stint, but I think how he performs in that spring training stint, and you know, we go to the backfields all the time. You have a really good opportunity there to prove yourself to the ball club, because it's not just BP and hanging out and going about your business like a pro. It's also all of these intra-squad matchups and stuff where you're facing, you know, big leaguers that are just trying to get some innings in. You're facing triple A guys. It's so many ABs, and you get an opportunity to really show yourself and prove that you're a little bit more advanced. So there's always a chance if he's just outrageously good, they could absolutely say, hey, let's get you to double. I just don't see too much of a reason to. And with a guy like him who made so much progress from the right side last year, and off of an injury, I think it makes a lot of sense to start him in high A and have him there for a month or two. And of course, if he's just playing out of his mind, then you can bump him up quickly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do we want to jump to the next one, or like overall? I think we kind of owe GD Keenan 20 an answer as to like, how do you think he will do after the ankle injury? I think the answer is good. Like, he was really, really good at A&M, man.
And you know, I'm not too worried about it. Like, we were talking about Chase DeLauder and with his foot issues, how heavy he is on his feet and how much sliding and moving there is in the box when he hits. A little bit more concerning. Braden Montgomery is as simple of an operation as you're going to find. So it's even less of a concern for me with him, where it's like, he is so quiet. He's so simple. He's athletic, but he's not a guy that, you know, if he loses a little bit of speed out of the gate, it's going to massively impact him. I don't think he does at all. But even if he just is guarding it a little bit, doesn't feel comfortable, you're not going to really notice it. He's a corner masher, and he's going to be a corner masher. So I'm not worried about it at all. And it sounds like everything went really smoothly, and it didn't seem to be anything more complicated injury-wise than you would want it to be.
Tell you what, I loved, and you know I love doing this, the 3-year plan for teams where it's like you factor in the young talent at the big league level and the prospects. And I just dream about an outfield at Fenway of Rafaela in center, Duran in left, Montgomery in right with that arm, and Roman Anthony DHing. Cool. And I salivate.
That's crazy. Roman Anthony would be the most athletic DH in Major League Baseball, I think, if Buxton's not DHing still at that point. I mean, that is crazy. And you can
take it out of the outfield. Yeah, you can rotate. You can rotate him, man. You can keep everybody fresh. You want Duran off his feet for a little bit. You want Montgomery off his feet for a little bit. Slap Roman in right. Dude.
Rafael, we'll go put Rafael at shortstop because whoever's at shortstop for the Red Sox got hurt again. Like, you could do a lot of different things. I see the vision. And we knew someone was going to fall into their lap, and it's just funny that it's a left-handed hitting power outfielder. They've got some fun things going on in that pipeline.
Seriously. Okay, next one. Another guy at the top of the draft from @T_Schulman Report on X. How long does it take to get Bazzana up to Cleveland? Good question. He's going to Lake County. He said that, so he's going to be in high A. I bet he gets to Akron by the end of this year. I bet he's in AAA to start next year, and we could be talking about all-star break for him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Dylan Cruz has made me have a little bit more pause because Dylan Cruz, like, oh, he's going to fly. His swing decisions are elite, and he has flown. But like, I think he has taken a normal path. He's going to get up in September or maybe at the end of August, and
that's still not a normal path.
That's the new normal
path. It's a new normal.
That's the new normal path. Whereas Wyatt Langford is the new expedited path, right? And I think he's going to be that Dylan Cruz type of path. One, because I don't think the Guardians need him as much. They're competing, and you don't need to just force him into a really extreme situation. It's a guy that had that power uptick this year. I don't want to see. My one concern with him would be he gets into survival mode because he's jumping to really advanced pitching, and all of a sudden that power uptick that he found, the ability to slug, to pull in the air, goes to the wayside a little bit because he's trying to survive and he's trying to battle. And I want to make sure that we are, if I'm the Guardians, that we are reinforcing that power uptick and having him climb with that improved power and what he has found there, because the above average power is what made him, in my opinion, the best player in the draft. Whereas before that, I leaned Wetherholt because I was curious if the power would even be average. Now it's above average. Can he keep that going without compromising the hit tool? I think yes, so long as he's not too aggressively pushed.
So there have been some minute inefficiencies exposed in Dylan Cruz in pro ball to this point. Spin recognition. What else? Velo up and in. Has that been an issue too?
I would say it's a little bit of a combination of spin recognition and then him being spinny himself. So that goes in tandem with the fact that he is swinging, like missing these breaking balls. But I also think if he recognized him better, he would stay on him longer. And then, naturally the elevated fastball with a guy with his swing path. But I think it also goes in tandem with the tunnel off of that slider. I really do think that the struggles with sliders are kind of exposing multiple things and kind of conflating them. But I do think it's sliders and then elevated heaters. Like it's the classic execution with him that you can go after with slider breaking away, fastball running up.
So remind me, were you aware of those at least a little bit at LSU? Yeah. So yes,
that was the one thing. Remember we talked about it on here.
Yeah.
Like, if I could poke one minute hole, the sliders, it looks like he's pulling off of them. He's yanking off of them. It's the same thing I'm seeing with Condon. Very, very similar thing here with Condon.
And it's not a deal breaker by any stretch. There are a lot of perennial all-stars that have had issues with spin recognition and just like the path taking them away.
100%. And I even felt like I was trying to get too cute at times with it, right? Like where I was just like, maybe I'm just trying to find something wrong with a guy that doesn't have anything wrong. No, like that was the one little thing. But the fact that that's his thing, and I mean, he's still able to have the success that he's had, climb through the minors, had really good stretches in AA, adjusting to AAA now too. But I think he's only going to get more comfortable in that regard. And if your biggest issue is sliders, which is the pitch I think that can be the hardest to hit in Major League Baseball because how sharp and optimized they all are working off of fastballs. Everyone has a slider that pairs with their fastball too. It's not just, oh, my slider is good. It's my slider is designed to work off of the type of fastball that I have. Correct. So that's why we're talking about the high fastball and slider situation. I think he will figure that out enough, but there is still that like rotated, and we talked about that, the spinny aspect to his swing. That was just the one. I wouldn't even say yellow, like whatever is below yellow and green, like if you combine yellow and green, what does that give you?
I think beige.
I never knew the color wheel, but like that's basically what the flag is for me.
So follow up there. Have you noticed any minute inefficiencies with Bazzana? Because I feel like the one quote unquote minute inefficiency with Bazzana is defensive value, but we don't really care about that when it comes to this. Like I'm curious, have you noticed like, hey, he's got a minor spin recognition issue or anything? Because I feel like you haven't alerted me to any of that with Bazzana.
No, I mean, my only thing is pitches on the outer half. How is he going to kind of drive those? Like, I'm a little worried that he could get a little bit pull happy because of what he's found to the pull side, and he gets to stuff on the inner half and even off the plate in as well as anybody, I've seen in the draft cycle in a little bit, especially with what he's been able to do, how he's short to the ball, but still so quick to it. I do have some concern of like, okay, sometimes trying to backside balls on the outer half. Is he strong enough to do damage there? Or is he going to try to yank them and roll them over? Super specific, weird thing that I'm not too concerned about.
Got it. Okay, next one. We go to
AJ. Yeah, sorry, we should say timeline. What do you think?
I mentioned All-Star break.
All-Star break next year.
Yeah,
I didn't realize I didn't give one. I think that's pretty spot on.
Okay.
I think he could have an insane spring training that expedites that a bit, especially if they have an injury or something happen. Remember, we were talking to Lauder this year just because of what he did. Injuries ended up hurting that and a slow start. I think it could happen a little bit earlier, but I think the safest bet is spring training. Or, excuse me, is the All-Star break.
Yeah. All right, next one from at AJ_Gilly1 on X. Yankee question. Is Ben Hess, the Alabama pitcher, a potential starter or more likely a reliever? Immediate lean was a lot of reliever risk. I think potential is an important word in this question.
Yeah. I mean,
I think everybody's a potential starter if you're drafted as a starting pitcher,
especially in the first round.
Yeah.
I'd imagine
every chance.
I'd imagine he's going to get every opportunity to start. And the thing that I think the Yankees, we've talked about, have just become increasingly good at is they find what you are good at, and then they find what you're deficient at and say, okay, is this guy a candidate for us to be able to get right with some adjustments? The Yankees have done a great job of teaching cutters and sliders to guys and really putting them over the top with that. Ben Hess has a fastball that plays. It is, we talked about, it's the most similar fastball is Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman's fastball as a starter with good secondaries is going to play. The curveball is a banger. It's a plus pitch, easily borderline plus, dominated in the mid 70s, like 77 miles an hour, 76, 77 miles an hour. Dominant pitch. His slider wasn't good, and he threw it just as much as the curveball. So the Yankees have been really good with that. So I think they saw a guy here that already has the curveball. It's a lot harder to teach, I think. Fastball characteristics, kind of just more of a thing that you either have or can get to, but it's very hard to teach. And then the slider cutter is something that they are great at teaching. So I think if they find that cutter slider with him, I do think that can kind of get him to a starter's mold, because this past year it was just fastball that plays best at the top of the zone, a slider that just was inconsistent, and then a curveball that's his best pitch. But when your best pitch is about 16 miles an hour slower than your fastball, sometimes it can be a little bit easier to game plan for you, especially when it's a bigger breaking pitch. So I think it made it a little bit harder for him sometimes to turn lineups over. I think this is a candidate, and clearly the Yankees think so too, having taken him in the first round, to benefit really significantly from their program and their development aspect that they have before these guys debut.
Follow up on the curveball. Are you worried that it will tick down a little bit with the different baseball in pro ball, because those seams are elevated on the college ball?
It's possible. I just think the way he spins it and the shape to it, it's going to be a darn good pitch. But it's valid,
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I think working off that fastball too is huge, where he's got that riding fastball and then it's just a downer off of it. I think it's going to work. But that is, I'm excited to do more research into that, because I want to see like more case studies of how what pitches are most affected by the shift to the new ball or to the Major League Baseball or professional ball and the seams and things like that. But I think he's going to be able to make it work. And I think ultimately reliever is the more likely outcome for a 6'5", 255-pound righty that can battle some command issues and still kind of looking for a definitive third pitch. But I'm not doubting the Yankees at this point with the way that they're able to kind of help create these more complete arsenals for these pitchers and also help them in the command department.
Got you. All right, next one. We go back to the top of the draft, and it's the guy that the Cardinals took at 7, 8? At 7. What is J.J. Wetherholt's pro comp / ceiling? I've seen him compared to future teammate Brendan Donovan. Donnie is a great player for the Cards, but I'm hoping / expecting for a bit more. That comes from at D_Rawlings23 on X. Real quick from me, if the ceiling is Brendan Donovan, you're doing him you're doing Wetherholt a disservice. I love Donovan. Wetherholt has a far superior ceiling to that of Brendan Donovan. I don't think it's close. Like, Donovan's a 250 hitter that will get on base a lot. Wetherholt could hit 310 in the big leagues, could hit 320 in the big leagues. That's the kind of like bat to ball that he's got.
Yeah. That's a fun one, because I never really thought about a specific pro comp for him. It's unique because it's speed It's a really good feel to hit, but also the ability to elevate consistently with that good feel to hit, and just a short, quick, ridiculously. I think it's one of the most impressive just bat speed and just swings in the draft period. Whew, that is fun. Do you lean anywhere there? I don't think Donovan's the comp, because I think they're just far different types of players. Wetherholt's more twitchy. I think Donovan's a little bit more well-rounded of a defender where you move him around.
Sure, but like Donovan can't hold his own at short like Wetherholt can. Yeah, like Wetherholt for me is a true middle infielder. Donovan can play, get by at short, but can also play right. And I just don't think like Wetherholt is doing that. I don't like a comp doesn't jump to mind for me in terms of ceiling. Like ceiling, this guy will contend for batting titles in the big leagues, and Donovan would never do that. You know what I mean? So I would say, I don't know, like best case Edman. Like
I do see more similarities to Edman than Donovan. I think that's a good kind of comparison there, because Edman hits the ball hard. It's just the difference is he put it on the ground a little bit too much, but he hits the ball hard. There isn't really that clear cut comparison, which I think is a good thing. I think it means he's a unique player, where I think what makes him so special is that you don't often get that blend of hit plus hit while also having a swing that is designed to backspin and create leverage and elevate. Usually that's going to come at the price of, so I would say usually if you're elevating consistently, it's going to come at the price of consistent contact a little bit. Or if you're making consistent contact, it usually results in a little bit higher of a ground ball rate if you look at a lot of the top guys in that department. It's as I look across Major League Baseball, I don't know if I see a clear-cut comp there, because there's just not a lot of guys that blend that hit and power. You have to hope that it all translates. But I think if I could think of a player that might be the most similar, and this would be, I don't think the ceiling's as high. Like for Wetherholt, I don't think the ceiling is as high. So it would be a lofty comparison. But I do think like Ketel Marte is similar-ish, where it's like he's just hitting the ball hard, but consistently hard and elevating enough. Again, I think Marte is a lofty ceiling for him, because I think he's an absolute star. But I think maybe if everything goes right, it's that Ketel Marte type of profile. Maybe not the 6-win Marte, the Marte that we've seen the last 2 years, which is a 4.5-4-win player that can hit you 20 to 25 home runs, and that can hit, anywhere from 275 to 290. I think the last 2 years of what we got from Ketel Marte is kind of what you can dream on with Wetherholt.
Got you. Choose your fighter question, and we stay in the National League Central. The Milwaukee Brewers. Who do you feel better about between Wilken, Boeve, and Burke now as the Brewers' long-term first baseman? Comes from @Dejinja34 on X. Wilken, Boeve, Burke. Burke is the most powerful option. Burke, I think, is best case scenario, where like you want to compare ceilings for all those guys. It probably goes Burke, Wilken, Boeve. Mm-hmm. But it might be reverse in terms of floor.
Yeah.
It's like, it's tough, man. So naturally you just go with Wilken as the middleman, right?
Yeah. That's, I like the bat so much with Burke that I think I would go Blake Burke. Bove's too contact oriented for a first baseman for me.
It's like if you were going to put Tyler Black at first base, right? Like Bove's just running the Tyler Black thing back.
And also, I think with a guy like Boeve, it can very easily turn into Ty France, where the second that he's not hitting at the same clip, there's not a lot of
claimed.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ways to slug. How is he going to, or just there's not a lot of ways to produce, I should say. Whereas, if you're Ty France, you hit for a lot of average, you hit enough doubles, you'll produce. But when you're not hitting 300, very hard to get that OPS up over 750. So I think I would, and I know it's always easy to go with the unknown, but I just think from the power perspective, left-handed hitter, who the one thing's the approach. Wilken does have a better approach, but the EVs are even if when Burke switches to wood will be better than Wilken's. I think Burke has just a better swing in general. I think better bat to ball. So I would go Burke. I think, and honestly, pretty the more I think about it, the more I'm convicted I am in that, because higher EVs than Wilken. Also, I think a better field to hit. Boeve, of course, has the best field to hit, but at the same time, he doesn't slug enough. I think Burke's the guy.
Yeah, I think I lean Burke as well too. And you kind of pitched me on the hitterish thing when we did our immediate leans too. Burke felt like the pick of the second round, personally, where it was, oh wow, they got an end of the first round talent in the second, and this works. And we know the Brewers love getting creative, and they got creative in the first, and it works in the second too.
It's the chase is the only like key thing I'm worried about. It's a really impressive swing from the left side. It's one of my another one of those guys that outside of the first round run a lot of swings I liked more than Blake Burke's. It's a really sweet swing from the left side.
He was also apparently the performer of the draft combine in Arizona. Like, he was the guy. He put on a show in BP.
It's some crazy bat speed there. So I think that was a perfect addition for them on top of that draft class. And they got creative, as they always do, with their class there.
All right, we're going to keep on rolling with the mailbag, but before that, quick break. Okay, question 6 comes from Jay Bodlovich on X, JBODLOVIC. Tigers question, which is fun. And like, we have expressed a lot of interest in what the Tigers have done the last few years. In the last 2 drafts, the Tigers passed on 2 premium college bats to go with the high upside, tooled out high schoolers. If you were in the Tigers front office, which route in the draft would you have gone? So context, in 23, they go Clark over Langford, but they use savings to go sign McGonigal at the end of the first round, or Compe, I want to say. This year, they pass on a Montgomery, I think, is what he's talking about, and a James Tibbs for a Bryce Rayner. I really like what the Tigers are doing. Rayner felt like the best player available, even with Montgomery and Tibbs on the board. I think the argument could be made for Montgomery, but if you just handed any GM a blank slate and said, hey, pick the best player between Rayner and Tibbs, you're going Rayner, no question. I think Rayner does get majority vote over Braden Montgomery as well. Rayner's uber talented. Last year, I think you have to call it an ace of a draft for the Tigers, at least at the top, when it came to Clark and McGonigal. Langford's awesome. Langford is phenomenal. Did they make the right decision? We'll see in 5 years. We'll see in 10 years. But they got 2 maybe top 50 prospects in baseball last year, and they did that with the savings. Yeah. So I love what Scott Harris has done. Yeah.
I mean, for sure, I'm always going to take the bird in hand, and we've talked about it, and I'm going to go Langford. But if you pivot the other way, they couldn't have done any better. And there's a real scenario where McGonigal and Clark are 2 everyday above average big leaguers, and it was the right move. So, I mean, you're already seeing in real time Harris, I think taking a situation where a lot of people were scratching their heads and already making it seem like a pretty sound decision. That said, like this year, especially in this draft, Montgomery doesn't do it for me as much in the Tigers situation than a guy that has every shot to stick it short and has the upside, that he has in Bryce Rayner. Like, I mean, and we talk about not totally drafting on need, but if you have a situation where a couple really good players fall into your lap and you have a choice between a college guy and a high school guy, I feel like a Braden Montgomery is kind of going to be cut from a similar cloth. I know a little bit more positional value, but to the Jace Young that you have, or to, even a Kerry Carpenter, if it all works out, I feel like they have a lot of those power bat corner guys relative to what they've got in terms of middle infield depth. And I think where the Tigers are at organizationally and all that good stuff, like, they've got a decent system. I would play for the upside there. And I do think that Bryce Rayner has more upside just off of the fact that he can play a good shortstop. It could be plus power from the left side. If the hit tool comes along, I mean, then you're really looking at a well-rounded shortstop that can do everything. And he has the fallback of the mound because he's up to 95 plus there as well. I mean, he could be a plus defensive shortstop. He could be very similar to like Marcelo Meyer. I think there could be a lot of similarities there. And if you get a chance to get a guy that can be cut from that type of cloth at, where they got him, I think that's a no-brainer. I actually like the way that they went about it. And Tibbs is kind of even more of the same thing, a platoon left. They don't need that as much. If I'm Scott Harris in my second draft here, you feel good about what you did last year with the high school guys, and you get a chance to, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd probably, knowing the way that the Tigers and Scott Harris approached the draft, I'd imagine they had Rayner ahead of Griffin as well, I would guess, the way that they value hit tool. And I know both have some questions with the hit tool, but Rayner is further along than Griffin. I would imagine that they felt like they got the best prep player in the class at, what was it, 10 or 11?
11.
11. Like
Rayner went at 11.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And again, I love what the Tigers are cooking right now. And I thought this draft is only fortifying what they've got because they have a lot of guys that are like close. That Toledo roster is good. That Erie roster is great right now. So just add, man, get Rayner to the complex, get him to Lakeland or something. I mean, Clark and McGonigal just got to high A. I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for that, where they just kind of move in tandem. I think at some point McGonigal is going to jump a level before Clark does, and it may be high A to double A. We'll see how McGonigal looks over the next 2 months in high A. I do think there's a chance he spends a week in double to end the year, where I would think Clark just finishes the year in high A and you call it.
I agree. And I think with the way Clark has looked, though, they could end up just be traveling together. It seems like Clark has really made some improvements with the hit tool, and McGonigal, I think, is one of the best hit tools in the minor league. So he's always going to be the favorite to move a little bit quicker. But just building off of the last point here is you look at their situation. We were just talking about them on the Just Baseball show, the Tigers, and the shortstop situation. Just hopefully you just get rid of Javier Baez, after the season and just cut your losses. You look through the system. This is one of those spots where I would kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, especially when you're deciding between high school shortstop and college outfielder, you can lean a little bit more into the draft by need thing because McGonigal is really a second baseman.
Yeah.
Who's the shortstop of the future in this organization?
It ain't Kreidler. Lee's a second baseman. Young's a second baseman, third baseman. Keith is a second baseman, third baseman. Got a lot of these guys, but you don't have a shortstop.
Nope. And this is instantly their long-term answer at shortstop. You hope it all works out, but there's really nobody even competing with him for that title.
Yeah. All right. Next one is a very fun one, and it's something that I know is near and dear to our hearts. It comes from @BrandonDillman6 on X. What are some of the best examples of teams manipulating slot values to perfection? Alternatively, some examples of teams that did so and regretted underslotting. Love the content, guys. That's a very nice
thank you
at the end. Thank you, Brandon. I plucked a couple of examples here. And I didn't do 24. I think the Nats are going to be the example of doing it well in 24 because I assume Loma Vida gets over slot because King got under. I was thinking Senja was going to get under, but Senja got full slot.
No, that was surprising.
It was surprising that they overslotted the crap out of Sloan, so they kind of just punted the rest of it, which is fine at the end of the day. Last year, I think we just talked about it. Underslotting Clark to go overslot McGonigal was the best example in the 23 draft. In the 22 draft, underslotting Cade Horton in the top 10 for the Cubs to overslot Ferris, which in turn you turn into Michael Bush and Yency Almonte, was a win for the Cubs drafting wise. And 21, I think the best example is, and again, it might be blowing up in their face right now, but Henry Davis, 2.3 underslot at 1-1 for the Pirates. They in turn overslot Anthony Solomito, Lonnie White, and Bubba Chandler with their next 3 picks. Yeah. They got 4 legit talents out of that using 1-1 money. I think that's probably especially getting Bubba in the 3rd round. That's the best example. That slot for Bubba was $870,000. They paid him $3 million. And now he looks like one of the better pitching prospects in the game. So it makes a lot of sense to me there. I'm thinking about it blowing up in teams' faces.
I got one.
Oh.
21 Royals. They underslot a high school, and I liked him, and I still do like him to a degree, although the velocity is now in the upper 80s.
Yeah.
Underslotting Frank Mazzucato at the 7th pick.
Yeah.
They sign him for $3.5 million. Slot value is 5.43. It's a high school lefty from Connecticut. It's not quite the hotbed there. Then they use those savings to go get Ben Kuderna. I hope we're Kuderna. Did we ever verify?
No, we never did. I'll go with Kuderna right now, and then we might just change it.
Yeah, they give him $3 million. That's almost twice the slot. Good, solid piece there. Like, good player, easily one of their best prospects now, but I don't think he's good enough to kind of trade back or kind of, that's what I essentially consider it at the 7th pick in that draft. And it wasn't a good draft all in all. Again, I don't think it's going to age well in terms of the entire draft that year. I would have approached it differently, because then they end up going college with their 3rd pick and Peyton Wilson, just going full slot value there. Then they go high school catcher. I mean, actually, it's gone pretty well for them. Carter Jensen. He looks like he's finally, turned it around and looks like a solid piece this year. Probably will end up being a trade piece for them. But then they just go prep, arm, over slot, and Shane Panzini. I don't even know much about him. And then they go over slot on another arm from Mississippi State. And it just didn't really work. I think they got too cute with it. They tried to get clever, and it just didn't really work for them at all. So I didn't love that one in terms of trying to underslot and be creative there. But again, you look at the next couple picks, it's like, okay, well, at least they didn't take Sam Bachman, or Benny Montgomery commanded $5 million. Sam Bachman commanded 3.85. Kumar Rocker after that wasn't even signed. So it could have been worse. But then after that, you have Brady House, Harry Ford, Andrew Painter. So it goes. You can play that game both ways. But I just thought that was a rough one. The Angels are a perfect example in that draft too, where they saved 1.1 on Bachman, and I mean, did they really do anything with that? Like, I mean, Bachman, I think he was viewed as a guy that could just get fast tracked. Instead, not really. They take him. They use a little bit of the savings to get Kai Bush. That's fine. They use. I think they go full slot for Landon Marceau or Marceau.
I think it's Marceau.
But like, they never even really ended up cashing in crazy overslot until the 12th round, where they give $1.25 million to Mason Albright from IMG Academy. That's what you underslotted in your first round for?
Wasn't Albright traded recently?
Yes.
Isn't he in Colorado now?
I believe so.
Yeah, there you go. That's tough. Another example of good. Last year, Miami, like, we forget about this, but they got maybe the 2 best high school pitchers in the class, right? Unless I'm missing somebody drastic. But like Noble Meyer at 10, they not shorted him. They saved about $1 million. They saved elsewhere too. They saved $400,000 on Kemp Alderman in the 2nd, so they could pay Thomas White 4.1 at 35th overall. They essentially like doubled his slot. Slot was 2.4. He got 4.1 because they saved on Meyer and Alderman. So I thought that was like really good from Miami, and they've got 2 guys that look like a big piece of their rotation moving forward. Yeah,
I mean, they essentially had 2 middle of the first round arms there, and they look like 2 really good arms for them. So it's funny that the guy that ended up, I think, getting a lot of the blame, and DJ Savilic, for the way that he drafted over the last several years, and
beautiful parting gift,
deservedly so, ends up having his best draft on the way out. I mean, they did not do well once again on the bats, but the fact that they'll just have those 2 arms to show for it alone, they turned Andrew Lindsay very quickly into a trade piece. And that helped them get some whatever back from the Rays, but some pieces back. It was a pretty solid draft for them. I got to admit. So it was his best parting gift there. We might be missing 1 or 2 others. I feel like I should mix in one more positive one. The Henry Davis underslot, we liked it at the time. And I think it was creative in the respect that I liked the way that they approached it and wanted to allocate the money and where they allocated it to. It hasn't aged as well. So maybe more of a scouting shortcoming there than, I think the approach. Like, I love Anthony Solomito. That was a guy that was a, fringe top 100 guy, but just the velo is just totally down this year. It's hard to knock them for that. Bubba Chandler looks like one of the best right-handed pitching prospects in baseball now. He got $3 million. So the $2 million that they saved from Henry Davis, $800,000 went to get Solomito. Another $1.2 million towards signing Bubba Chandler, and then they also used roughly $1,000 in savings to get Lonnie White, who's finally healthy and looks like he could be a relevant prospect moving forward with the way he's played at points this year. So I still like the way they went about it. I still think that there's some intrigue there. It hasn't aged quite as well, but in a redraft, Bubba Chandler is a slam dunk top 15 pick, maybe even higher than that. So still having Henry Davis, who you still hope can figure it out, and you still hope this Anthony Solomito can get that velo back. I thought the way that they approached it was pretty clever, and they did accumulate plenty of upside there.
I've got another positive one for you before we move on. 2020, the forgotten draft.
Oh.
Orioles save 1.5, 2.5, pardon, on Heston Kjerstad, and they 1.2 over Kobe Mayo in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was fine. And Westberg, by the way, got full slot at that point. Hudson Haskin got full slot, but Servideo got a little bit over, and Carter Baumler got a little bit over too.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome draft.
That's a pretty good draft. Cardinals. I feel like the Cardinals had a really good one too in
2020. Their draft was insane. I don't even know if it was really a matter of like them saving and being creative versus just actually drafting and scouting incredibly well. Because they
saved $200,000 on Walker.
Yep.
And they saved $200,000 on Burleson. And they gave Tink Hence slightly over slot, and they gave Mason Wynn $800,000 over slot.
That's just genius allocation there and just great scouting.
Yeah.
Like that's more, I think more than anything, it's the scouting side. Like grabbing a Burleson for under slot with your 70th overall pick is crazy. Tink Hence clearly didn't have a crazy market for him as a prep arm, given that they barely had to go over slot for him. And saving money, we'll see how Walker. I mean, this shows you how fluid these things are. Yeah. I think going over slot for Wynn was the really impressive aspect of it too. But that might go down as one of the more, depending on how Walker progresses, could go down as one of the more impressive drafts we've seen in a long time.
I think so. I saw Walker in the Charlotte airport yesterday, by the way. I texted you and you were like,
yeah, no. I tried to think about why he would be there. I can't think of anything other than seeing family, and
yeah, I've got no idea, but yeah, saw him in the Charlotte airport. Kind of crazy. But all right, question number 8. This from at Roki Horror PS, Roki Horror Picture Show. That's kind of a funny Twitter name, but any player in org pairings that have you concerned about maximizing that player's potential? Mm-hmm. There's a slam dunk answer, but let's get creative and find others. The slam dunk is more in Anaheim.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's the Angels. It's no knock on Christian Moore. I think Christian Moore can be a damn good major league player, but his development is eliminated again because he's an LA Angel.
His dad was right next to me on the plane.
That's awesome.
Wonderful man. Like such a nice guy. And he just saw me writing about baseball and said, "Oh, like, who do you write for?" We ended up just chopping it up. Saw him wearing an Angels hat and just mentioned, "Oh, my son was in the draft." Oh, and I had to put it together. And I was like, "Oh, well, don't tell me your son is Christian Moore." And he's like, very proud smile. Yes, he is. They're very excited. And I was like, your son's like barely going to play in the minors. He's like, "That's what everyone's telling us." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, can't complain, right? It's exciting, but awesome guy. Family seems extremely excited, but that's just one of the cool things when you're flying back from All-Star week. You never know who you're going to run into or who's going to be right next to you on the plane, but awesome guy. That is one where it's just development-wise, like tough. Seaver King. I really like Seaver, and I think he's super talented. The Nationals just continue to draft toolsy guys with a limited plate discipline. And I don't have a lot of confidence in them being able to develop them. I think that I don't have much confidence in them being able to develop hitters, period. We've seen what James Wood has done. I think that's more of a one-off. I think that might just be more of a testament to James Wood. They have loved to go after those toolsy, aggressive free swingers. I know this was a different group drafting this year, but still it's kind of the same people at the top. They go with a high chase guy in Seaver King and who struggles to recognize spin. And then they go high chase guy with Caleb Lumavita. I love what they did, like in a vacuum, but I am a little wary of a tools first lack of plate discipline player going to the Washington Nationals. I don't know if they have the infrastructure that they think they have for those guys, at least just in my opinion.
Yeah. There's another one that jumps out to me. Same kind of deal. PJ Morlando to Miami. Like it's
until they prove otherwise.
Right. It's rinse and repeat. It's just like until you prove otherwise, I don't know if you have, the bandwidth to take this high school bat and have him blossom into his maximum potential.
Yep. Yeah. What do you think about the Pirates and Connor Griffin?
I don't know, because so much of the Pirate model has been pitching development. Like we talk pitching. I think Tamar Johnson is super talented. And Tamar started this year really slow. and then got really hot. So the numbers look fine now. I don't know how much of that is Tamar and how much of that is the Pirates helping Tamar.
Yeah.
So I think like give it a year or two and we'll see what Connor Griffin looks like. But I certainly like have my concerns that, their expertise is in pitching and hitting may fall by the wayside.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of a concern with that with like the new regime in Kansas City. I wouldn't say concern. I'm just kind of waiting to see. We've seen them develop these arms. How do these new folks in charge? They're clearly a lot more forward thinking and more conducive to developing their players. How do you do with somebody as volatile as a Jack Caglione? Right. That's one, but I wouldn't put that in the same bucket there. I think they earned the benefit of the doubt there, and I mean, a guy that's as talented as him, I'm not too worried about development. I think it's mostly just up to him and his approach. I mean, the swing and the power is just off the charts. So, yeah, I think the Marlins with the 2 high school bats, you got to look in that direction. And then from there, I actually do feel pretty good about the Reds and Chase Burns, relatively speaking, given that they have the proof of concept with Hunter Green. Yeah. Who they have definitely helped get to the point that he's at and keeping the ball in the yard and being effective with a fastball that was not did not perform as well as you would expect it to throughout the minor leagues and early going of professional baseball. But I definitely lean towards the Seaver King side of things for sure. And hopefully I'm wrong there. But other than that, I don't know if I see like any other majorly like poor fits from a develop. I think it's a great question and a really fun one. But yeah, other than that, I don't know if I see anything too crazy outside of that. But there's some really good ones. There's some really good partners. But yeah, I think those are the ones that stand out the most to me.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, 2 more questions here. This one comes from @JMO on X. Ooh. I love reading these handles, man.
They're great.
They're fun. @JMO on X asks, who do you think could make a real impact at the MLB level next season? Good question. I think it's a top of the draft question. Mm-hmm. Bazzana, yeah. Hagen Smith, yeah.
Yeah.
Burns
is interesting because I think part of and I've spent some time on this, and like, of course, I still lean Hagen Smith, but I think upside wise, Burns has a higher ceiling because there's just so much more to work with there. Yeah. And I almost wonder if you're the Reds, if you'd rather take a little bit more time to just see how you can optimize that arsenal, maybe get him working with a splitter from the top, maybe get him throwing a cutter, but maybe you could do that at the big league level. Maybe you can play with that.
And dude, like, it seems like they're in no rush with Rhett Lauder. Like they've protected the living shit out of Rhett Lauder this year.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they do that with a guy like Burns?
I think they're very traumatized with how things went in the past, injury-wise, with their pitchers. I mean, they had as bad of a churn and burn as anybody with their prospects, and there's a lot of fallout and pointing fingers with some notable people in the industry that came from that. I think the no-brainer is Bazzana because of how polished he is. Yeah. And we talked about him getting up midway through next year. Condon because of the environment, right? Like, he's going to be in Spokane if he is there for whatever reason, or if wherever he is, that's not Hartford. He's going to demolish.
Yeah,
Hartford will be the test. But even if he's like fine in Hartford, I could just see them bringing him up to Albuquerque. He's going to put up joke numbers there. They'll bring him up, but I do think that he's going to have as big of a learning curve as a lot of these guys at the top.
Yeah.
Wetherholt wouldn't shock me either, though.
Yeah.
But with the injury, do they want to quickly short? I think Smith is a very obvious one.
Yeah,
especially considering how they handled Crochet.
I also think Kurtz is a very obvious one too.
Yeah, like why waste much time? Also another guy that you're going to kind of skip the some of those environments. He's just going to fly through them, and then if you put him in AAA, joke again.
Yeah.
And then even AA for them, like still pretty friendly environment.
Texas League, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Kurtz might, and with his approach, Kurtz is going to kind of be a guy that even if he's not clicking on all cylinders, will probably just be too good for the competition because he's just going to walk and he's going to hit his bombs. So let's power rank him. in terms of next year's WAR or just next year's impact, I guess. And those might be synonymous, maybe not. Eye of the beholder.
Okay.
Is Bazzana 1?
Yeah, Bazzana for me is 1. Hagen Smith 2. Condon 3. Kurtz 4.
I'm with you. Because Condon could also just find something, and that breaking ball thing isn't as much of an issue. He's one of the best fastball hitters we've seen in the draft in a long time.
Yeah.
And he could end up just flying through. So, yeah, I think that's pretty spot on.
Another one a little bit farther down, like outside the top 10, James Tibbs. I think Tibbs can get up there very, very quickly in San Francisco, and there's not much holding him back there.
Especially because are you even going to bother trying to see if he can hit lefties? Like,
no, I don't think you need to.
Especially them.
They're very, very interested in contending with a team that is not built to be a contender. So I think they're just going to listen. Wade Meckler got up last year. I'm not concerned about James Tibbs taking his time in San Jose and then going to Richmond and then going to Sacktown. Like, I'm not worried about that. He's going to be at Oracle pretty damn soon.
I agree with that. I honestly think the rankings line up pretty good there. I'd put it pretty similar. Maybe Kurtz slightly over Condon just because they might push him quicker, but I don't know, with the way the Rockies are, I think they might just want to see him at Coors sooner rather than later. And just even if he flounders a little bit, like, who cares? I mean, we just saw what they did to Amador, who has been putrid since then, by the way. I agree with that order.
Cool. All right. Last but certainly not least, our one Instagram question. By the way, go follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, we're going to start posting more clips on there too, guys that are performing. As just some more highlights in general. So definitely go follow that Instagram. It's
and it's been growing, but it's brand new as of this year. So go follow us on IG. But this one came from at a lot of underscores Dame a lot of underscores on Instagram. Highest ceiling of any guy drafted outside of the top 15 picks. I love that question. There were two names, I think, that jumped to my mind here that I remember you raved about. And I'm going to hold them. I'm going to see who you say, and I'll tell you if those are the names that I was thinking.
How far back are we going here?
I'm kind of stopping at the end of the first round.
Okay. I would say Theo Gillen.
Okay.
The hard part is, like, upside-wise, like, theoretically, Vance Honeycutt. I just don't have a ton of confidence in him being able to get to that. So totally. I don't think he's going to hit enough to reach that upside, so I'm not going to go with him. Caminiti.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cash Mayfield.
Yeah.
And Slade Caldwell.
So the two names that jumped out to me were Cash Mayfield, who was taken by the Padres at 25, and Slade Caldwell, who was taken by the Diamondbacks at 29. You sold me on Jet Williams 2.0 with Slade Caldwell.
Yeah.
And then Cash Mayfield, you showed me the delivery, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to work.
I knew you'd be in. I knew you'd be in immediately after I showed you.
This is Snelling again, man. Just sign me up for Snelling round 2.
Yeah, 6'4", 200, so smooth. Like, he might be a combination of the floor ceiling thing. Gillen for me is there just because I think the big reason is the injury history he's had. Is a guy that could be a plus hitter with above average power and flies. I mean, and can play shortstop potentially, or you put him in the outfield, like whatever you want to do. Like, that aspect is really fascinating to me too. But I just think the explosiveness, the twitch, the feel to hit for Slade Caldwell, it's kind of that McGonigal, Jet Williams profile that I really like. And then, of course, Caminiti, like, that guy has a chance to be a monster at 17 years old. But I guess, do I have to pick two?
Go ahead and pick two. Why not?
Who do you have? Who are you rolling with for you?
Mayfield and part of me wants to say Kellen Lindsey, but no.
That swing is so far off. But
just give me the quarterback with the Dodgers, man. They figure some shit out. No, I'd say Mayfield and Caminiti, but that's pitcher bias coming out of me.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably go. I mean, Caminiti, that's like an automatic one for me because I think that was the biggest surprise faller.
Also, him only getting slot at 24 was insane. I don't know how the Braves pulled that off. Like,
amazing.
He donated his overslot to the Braves Foundation. What's going on here?
It's amazing. It's just what they do, man. It's wild. I guess there was probably some signability concerns after that, and he might have lost some leverage. Not a lot of other teams were willing to go much over that after he slipped out of the top 10, 12, whatever it may have been. But I'll go with Gillen and then probably Slade Caldwell and Caminiti. Although I love Cash, but I also like Cash more of like the floor side of it too. But we're going to be in piss when Dante Nori is the guy out of this group.
Yeah, Quadzilla,
who, by the way, to wrap up, one thing that stood out to me is they go exact same slot, the Phillies, Dante Nori and Griffin Burkholder. That's kind of fun for a team that was going to be a bit limited in terms of their pool. They must love Griffin Burkholder to have to wait till 63, but then give him twice the slot value and go under slot, $800,000 the way that they did with Nori. I'm excited to dig further into Burkholder because clearly I think he's an exciting high school outfielder for them that they kind of catered their draft to being able to sign.
Yeah, I love it. That's it, man. Yeah, I've got nothing else. A hell of a mailbag. I love these.
Awesome. Great questions. Thank you guys so much for asking. And we're going to be doing an NL Central tour. We should probably plug that real quick as well. Starting on, I don't know if you have the all of it in front of you right now, but very excited about this. So we are stopping 5 stadiums in 5 days, and we're going to be going all over. Jack, if you have it in front of you, you can walk everybody through the dates before we wrap up. Would love to have you there with us. We have a section at each ballpark. We're going to be there before. We're going to do a bunch of giveaways, items from partners, some really cool stuff out there. And it's going to be during the deadline. So just a lot of ball talking and fun stuff from that perspective. Jack, lead us through it.
If you're in the Midwest, come join us. Milwaukee on Monday night. That's the 29th. So that's next Monday. And by the way, flash sale going on right now through the end of the day on Wednesday. You get 50% off. So join us for $25. You get a whole bunch of added perks along with a ticket, and you get to hang out with us and watch some ball. But we're at AmFam on Monday in Milwaukee. That's the Brewers. And then we go to St. Louis on the 30th. So Tuesday, Monday night in Milwaukee, Tuesday night in St. Louis, Wednesday the 31st in Cincinnati. We'll be doing a live show from the MGM Sportsbook there. Thursday night at Wrigley for Cubs Cardinals, and then Friday at PNC for the Pirates. And I don't know if that lines up with Skeens. I don't think. Maybe it's either going to be Keller or Skeens doing the math off the dome.
Ooh,
come on now.
If it's Skeens, come on down. Come on down. $5 off with the code Just Baseball. Again, we got the flash sale right now. Once it lines up with Skeens potentially, obviously those tickets will probably go up in price. Not for us though. It is grandfathered in there, obviously. But for the flash sale, you can get them for half off right now with an extra $5 off with the code Just Baseball and a bunch of awesome things thrown in there. The link is in the episode description to go check it out. Would love to hang out with you and watch some ball. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
I think it's Keller, which is still awesome. 7 innings, a 1-run ball. As it lines up right now, it'd be Keller.
Okay. That's still great.
Sick.
Still awesome. Especially with the way the Pirates are playing right now. All of a sudden, they might be
Pirates D-backs.
Yeah. I mean, that's direct wild card, conversation there for both of those teams that have been playing better and are in it. So would love to see you there. Let me know. DM me if you have any questions. That link is in the episode description. Jack's got a game to call. So we'll let him get to it. I have a softball game to play. So we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you for all the questions. Look forward to that.